Garrett, are you going to your work?
Yep.
Are you enjoying your first time working?
Yep, I'm planning on getting my first paycheck today.
You're a frontline worker, Garrett.
Yes, I am. Are you doing your YouTube video thing?
You're in my YouTube video right now, Garrett. This is the worker.
Catch me on Luis and Sadakoy.
Head to Ralph. In the last episode, we talked about prisoners and ransoms and soldiers and the questions they had and we have about the legitimacy of Henry V's claim to the French crown. We also alluded to the death of Falstaff's page. This death of a boy that we were introduced to in Eastcheap in Henry IV Part 2 is one of many deaths that surround Henry V's old haunt of Eastcheap. Now, the page's death is situated within the larger questions of why Henry V ordered the killing of prisoners. Shakespeare's following the outlines of that battle at Agincourt closely. The rear was taken by French stragglers, while Bourbon was rallying the French lords for a second attack. So Henry had to make a decisive decision that went contrary to the rules of war. He ordered the killing of the prisoners in the rear. Alarum. Alarum is a call to arms or a signal for an attack, like da-da-da-da, it's like a horns. Alarum. But hark, what new alarum is this same? The French have reinforced their scattered men. Then every soldier kill his prisoners. Give the word through. That means Monsieur Deux is also dead. Remember Pistol's French prisoner? Pistol has cut his throat. And that's exactly, if you remember, what the Frenchmen feared the most. But in regards to the page's death, the boy's death, let's look at that scene when Captain Flolin and Gower come upon the massacre. Flolin, remember, he's a Welsh. English is a second language speaker. Kill the poise and the luggage? 'Tis expressly against the law of arms. 'Tis an errant piece of knavery, mark you, now as can be offered. In your conscience now, is it not? Gower, 'tis certain there is not a boy left alive, and the cowardly rascals that ran from the battle have done this slaughter. Our page is dead. But the decision is so confusing. The destruction of the rear by the French, Bourbon's desperate attack, what Gower can only assume is that the killing of the prisoners was related to the killing of the boys. Besides, they have burned and carried away all that was in the king's tent. Therefore the king most worthily hath caused every soldier to cut his prisoner's throat. Oh, 'tis a gallant king. That gallantry undermines Flolin's assessments of Henry V, especially afterwards when he makes a comical analogy between Alexander the Pig and Henry V, which leads us then to another Eastcheap death, Falstaff. Aye, he was born at Monmouth, that's in Wales, where Flolin is from, Captain Gower. What call you the town's name where Alexander the Pig was born? Alexander the Great. Why, I pray you, is not Pig great? The pig, or the great, or the mighty, or the huge, or the magnanimous, or all a one reckoning, save the phrase is a little variation. I speak but in figures and comparisons of it. As Alexander killed his friend Clitus, being in his ales and his cups, so too Harry Monmouth, being in his right wits and his good judgments, turned away the fat knight with the great belly doublet. He was full of jests and jipes and knaveries and mocks. I forgot his name. Sir John Falstaff. Flolin's analogy is not only that they were both born near a river, which is kind of funny, but that Henry killed his best friend like Alexander did. And isn't that what Pistol's wife, Hostess, quickly says,
"By my troth, he'll yield the crow a pudding. He'll be carrion for a crow soon to eat because he's going to be dead. One of these days, the king has killed his heart. Good husband, come home presently."
which later Corporal Nim confirms.
"The king hath run bad humors on the knight." He's shown ill will. That's the even of it. That's the truth. Pistol, "Nim, thou hast spoke the right. His heart is fracted and corroborate." He has a broken heart.
The king has broken his heart. But then Nim also contradicts Pistol. Remember, they were in a fight earlier. Recognizing the truth of Hal's, now King Henry V's, new position.
"The king is a good king, but it must be as it may. He passes some humors and careers. He does act a little strangely and have humors."
The king had to do what he had to do, and besides, they all knew Hal's personality. He had humors. And then Pistol responds like anyone who has had to deal with someone dying, "Relief that you are alive."
I like how Pistol is being sweet. "Let us condole the knight. For lambkins, we will live."
What's strange about Henry V is that we never get to see Falstaff again. Remember the promise of Henry V Part 2 in the epilogue?
This is the epilogue speaking to the crowd. "One more word, I beseech you. If you be not too much cloyed with fat meat, our humble author will continue the story with Sir John in it and make you merry with fair Catherine of France, where, for anything I know, Falstaff shall die for a sweat, unless already killed with your hard opinions. For Oldcastle died martyr, and this is not the man."
We were promised more Falstaff. I mean, we get Catherine of France's comical scenes, like her learning English, but with Falstaff dead, it sort of harkens towards all the other familiar friends from Eastcheap, from the Henry IV plays. I mean, let's just make a list. You have the page, you have Nim, you have Bardolph, you have Falstaff, you have Henry or Hal. Remember, he's dead in the sonnet. And in fact, Falstaff's vivid death is off-screen like Henry's and Nim's and Bardolph, and it is moving. It's a very moving scene. I also like how the boy has a kind of funny memory, like little kids tend to do, that are completely disconnected from adult conversations. It's all about Bardolph's red nose, as usual.
"Do you not remember I saw a flea stick upon Bardolph's nose and has said it was a black soul burning in hellfire?" Bardolph, "Well, the fuel," the sack that he was always given to him from Falstaff, the liquor, "is gone that maintained that fire. That's all the riches I got in his service."
And then they're off for the wars. It's sad. And even dull Tearsheet is dead.
"Doth fortune play the hussy with me now? News have I that my Nell is dead. I the spittle of a malady of France. And there my rendezvous is quite cut off."
Wait, your text says Nell. That means Mistress Quickly's dead, Pistol's wife, but that doesn't make any sense. If you look at the folio and the quarto, it definitively says my doll.
In Q1, Doll is not dead, but she is sick. "Well, France, farewell. News have I certainly that Doll is sick. One malady of France." The malady of France, that's a venereal disease. In the first folio, he has a news that my doll is dead, the spittle of a malady of France. She dies of venereal disease. Makes more sense than the wife.
I don't understand the editorial rationales. In fact, all the editions change my doll to my Nell, but there's no emotions. Remember, Pistol is an emotional guy. If his wife is dead, we would expect more bombast from him. or maybe true pathos at that moment. But it's not. Instead, there's this sad recognition that a friend has died. So it can't be his wife, no matter what the editions say. And then what about Bardolph? His death implicates the king. We first find out about it through Falstaff's page, because he's filled with these little soliloquies that fill us in with details. We know that they've been robbing their way through France, and we also know that the king is against pillaging. But once Bardolph is arrested for stealing religious artifacts from a church, it allows for Pistol and Fluellen to discuss fortune.
Bardolph, a soldier firm and sound of heart, of buxom valor, hath by cruel fate and giddy fortune's furious fickle wheel, notice the alliteration, that goddess blind that stands upon the rolling restless stone. Fluellen, by your patience, Ensign Pistol, Fortune is painted blind with a muffler for her eyes to signify to you that Fortune is blind. That's a tautology. And she is painted also with the wheel to signify to you, which is the moral of it, that she is turning. And in constant and mutability and variation. And then you jump over to Pistol. Fortune is Bardolph's foe and frowns on him, for he hath stolen a pax, that's a religious object, and hanged must it be, a damned death. Let gallows gape for dogs, let men go free, and let not Hemp, that's the rope, his windpipe suffocate. But Exeter hath given the doom of death, that's the judgment, for pax of little price.
Finally, Bardolph is executed. And we hear about the execution through Fluellen when Henry arrives at the bridge.
Talking about casualties. Marry, for my part, this is Fluellen, I think the Duke hath lost never a man, but one that is like to be executed for robbing a church, one Bardolph, if your majesty knows the man. His face is all bubuncles and whelks and knobs and flames of fire, and his lips blows at his nose, and it is like a coal of fire, sometimes blue and sometimes red, but his nose is executed and his fire's out.
That's Bardolph's nose, right? It's a metonymy. Some editions make these elaborate explanations for what Fluellen means, but it's quite clear. Fluellen is a comical speaker like Pistol. If his nose is out, he's out, right? All of him is out. The fire of life is the coals of his nose. They're extinguished, and his life is extinguished. The drama comes from Henry's response to the death of his old friend.
Think of his reaction, not necessarily his words. We would have all such offenders so cut off. And we give express charge that in our marches through the country there be nothing compelled from the villages, nothing taken but paid for, none of the French upbraided or abused in disdainful language. For when lenity and cruelty play for a kingdom, the gentler gamester is the soonest winner. And he's thinking of the tennis balls.
How do we play that scene? Is it him trying to maintain control over his army? Is there a moment of realization that life has completely changed? This is a great scene, a great potential scene, and versions of the play and movies always play it differently. Like, what do you think his emotions are? There has to be regret, guilt, but there also are the new responsibilities. He's not longer Hal, he's now Henry V.
Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.